complex is.
That's Darren Lilly.
Wow, that looks really nice, that siding, that just like.
Changed the white to a gray siding there.
Dresses it right up immediately.
Yeah, the
Any
neat-
change,
I know,
You know?
minor change is amazing, paint this windows.
$100 worth of paint go a long ways.
Is wood's expensive right now? That paint, that looks fantastic.
Now they're starting to sell sawdust in little baggies on the side of the street. You got the drug problem, you got a wood problem.
See people dealing with wood instead of the cocaine. That's ironic.
Right?
Yeah, you should start with that.
Yeah, it looks good down.
Brian?
It's all bright.
So the camera's now live.
Long time no see.
I know. I was waiting for my phone call today.
You want to go up for a
I
ride?
wanted to go for a ride.
I'll surprise you someday. Yeah, days like this and you spend inside. These are few and far in between.
No, but you get up at the lake. You get up at the lake.
At least I see it for a couple hours there. I saw the sunrise this morning. Yeah, lake was dead calm for a good part of the morning. How's everything at the bottom of the hill? Good.
Better than last weekend.
Yeah. It's been a rough couple weeks.
They're moving some dirt
Yeah.
out
Yeah,
near
they're
McDonald's,
hauling
huh?
some dirt
Jeez.
around.
Right.
Holy cow.
So where were they seem to be hauling that up 11 somewhere?
Vinny.
Yeah, I think it's on Vinny's lot, huh?
Ah, so on that big drop there right
They're
off.
taking out all the topsoil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they,
Now they found some good fill there underneath that, and they're starting to fill. They've been putting that in the back corner by the brook there.
Yeah, I saw that.
Is that due to come up like 20 feet? And then I think Adam Drew was talking to Jason about that. I think Adam Drew's got the supply agreement for gravel from that Mike Rossino's old pit there up on Pelletier Road in Frenchville. So Clarence was up in there for a few, with a couple of trucks and an excavator and hauling stuff out to Vinny's.
Okay.
But all the other equipment there is it's J&J's equipment.
Okay. Is it 5:30?
Yep. Must be pretty close.
528.
Couple,
I got 28,
yeah,
but-
couple minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're definitely moving some earth around now. Holy cow.
Gerald?
Incredible to
Gerald?
watch.
Can you get
That's,
another chair out? If you don't mind, thank
It's
you.
amazing how the equipment they have in there, you know, they can move some earth from rest. Does nobody has any idea what this group is with McAdee's? I'd heard September, but I don't know if it's.
This fall sometimes. I don't have anything hard as you're seeing.
Ready? I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we're open to public participation. Is there anybody that wants to address the board?
Got 2 minutes?
Yes.
I'm gonna read it fast. My name is Eddie Plort, Madawaska, been a resident since I was born. 25% Americans, Madawaska citizens do not respect vehicle speed limits or signage. For the past couple years, the vehicle traffic and ATV has increased on Fox Street. So has the increase of speed. 25 miles an hour is the non-posted limit, and the non-posted slow children at play on Dion Park is nowhere to be posted. I have asked for these signs several occasions to no avail. My educated, approximate research, 60% of fellow people follow the speed limit. 2, 15% go about 5 miles an hour faster than the speed limit. And 3, 25% speed over 10%, or over 10 miles an hour. I myself would follow in the category of number 2, which is I normally drive about 5 miles faster than the speed limit. The speeding issue is not limited to Fox Street, for it is all over the town of Madawaska. Our problem streets are Main Street, 3rd Avenue, 11th Avenue, 19th Avenue, and certainly Fox Street. I have talked to the local police department for the past 2 years with 0 results. Yes, we have tried the radar signs, but once the radar is gone, we're back to square one. Fox is a beautiful, wide, so when vehicles going east from 22nd Avenue, the view of Fox Street with no vehicles parked on the side gives the person the power to speed, plus noisy, off-market mufflers and tailpipes. Suggestions could be given to the proper law enforcement department. However, it is not for me to do so. But the easy solution to the fix is one word: ticket. Ticket, which is not happening. And that would be up to you know who to. I leave it up to you people to take care of this matter with the police department. Thank you.
I have a question for you, Mr. Ford. What times do you find it's worse?
I've told the deputies my best time 3:30 to 4:30.
3:30 to 4:30.
Thank you.
Oh, you have a question
Yeah.
for Mr. Ford?
For Gary, real quick. What would it take for us to get signs put up by at least the park to slow kids playing?
I don't think it would be a big deal. I think that's by action of this board. We can direct our public works department. We could talk to, I think we typically lean on the police department for guidance on sign placement.
Right.
But our public works department would be the ones to do the install.
So, Mr. Chair, can we make an action at this meeting, or do you want to schedule for another meeting to?
Well, I don't know if Mr.
I got a question,
Concerning the same issue?
thing.
Okay, I'd like to hear more before, so,
My name is Earl Pelletier, and I live on the corner of 18th and Fox Street.
okay.
And it is a big problem, those who are side by side anything that goes with 2 wheels or 4 wheels is not really enforcing. I mean, it's just crazy. Some days, it's just out of proportion. I mean, the noise that goes there, some have these hot 4 wheels, and they don't respect the law. They just go down the street, they don't even stop at the stop sign, they're not on the right side of the road. And some of these days, some even have kids in between their legs driving. And I don't know what they're doing up and down the street of Park Street. I mean, if they're going to gas or get something to eat. But they're going up and down that street just like it's open game. Okay? So I'd like to know what is gonna be done with this because it's getting out of hand. And that's all I gotta say. So I'm leaving it up to you people to find out what it is.
Thank you. Mr. Floyd?
Back to the 25 mile an hour signage. You can put one on my corner, Fox and 21st, over by the telephone poles.
Yeah, and they don't honor the stop sign, no matter what. I don't believe the town of Madawaska is made for stop signs. Because I have seen people, they go right by the stop sign without stopping. I can see, slowing down, but there's some that just go through and hey, happy days are here again.
Thank you.
Like I told the police, come at those hours, stay on my porch, have some iced tea, you want a beer, give you a beer.
Yeah.
But within half an hour to 3/4 an hour, you're gonna be
Exactly.
so busy. It doesn't make sense
It
anymore.
doesn't make sense that.
There's a stop sign on 21st, I would say 40% will not make this. For me, a stop is a stop. It's not a yield, it's a stop.
It's the law.
It's the same thing, it's the same thing as Bridge Street. It used to be a yield, now it's a stop sign. I told them, park at Tim Hortons, and you're gonna have 2 things to look for. And I hate to say this, because at a certain hour, I can tell that later on, 50%, 60% people do not make a stop sign on Bridge that hits me. And then coming down from McDonald's, there's a curve there, and if the police were to stay in front of, on the other side of Tim Hortons, and put them on radar, they would catch commercial trucks, everything, it's crazy. And that's at 25 mile an hour.
Oh, one thing too, about these big trucks with Jake brakes there, are they allowed in town to use those?
So we don't have a jake brake ordinance in town.
You don't, but that should
There
be mandatory.
is a sign, I don't know about.
It's
an
not,
ordinance, but there is
it's a
sign
courtesy
for the
thing,
station.
but there is no ordinance to speak of.
Right.
You can't be fined for it.
And it's the state of Maine that puts the sign up.
It's a, so it's a state.
Yes.
I follow you. Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions, board members?
No, I just think as far as the park, aside from the other speed limit sign, I think we should definitely take an action on putting a sign up for the park at least to say that there's kids playing and to slow down. And then we can discuss with the police department about the other sign.
Could real quick, I don't wanna keep beating the same subject, but I wanna speak to on behalf of, Ed Florida. My name is Justin Love, I've moved in, there on Fox Street, I've been a resident only 2 years, but in the 2 years I've been here, I can attest exactly what these gentlemen are speaking about. It is out of control. I sit there and watch all the time, I'm right across the street from Fox Park, and that's my issue. There are so many young kids that come running right to the edge, and those cars have no respect. I mean, they fly through that road, like he says, every day, and he's correct on the times. It really picks up between 3:30, 4:30, into 5. I mean, they go, my wife's a
Schools
teacher.
get out.
She can name half the students that are some of the perpetrators of this. I mean, it's not only students, it's Mima as well. I mean, I see her just going right on by too. I wrote down license plate numbers. I mean, I don't know what to do, because I don't want to get people in trouble. It's not what I'm after. But it's only a matter of time before somebody gets hit, and then we're all gonna go, oh, we should have did something. A sign is a good step. I'm all for a sign, but I don't even think that's the solution. I think a bolt-in speed bump, they do them at the hospitals. I know it's a hassle in the town. It is. It's an expense, a hassle. They gotta be bolted in. they gotta be taken out in the winter, so for plowing, I understand that, but it's just a matter of time before a kid gets hit. It really is. I mean, I sit there every day on my porch, just like he does, and watch these cars. They get at the top at 22nd, and there's something about that hill. They just gotta get on the gas. Ooh, and they squeal the tires, everything. It's just, it's crazy. I mean, I've only been here 2 years, so I can't speak like these gentlemen for everything that they see, but in the 2 years that I've been there, it is a constant thing every day. Like every day. Like I stand at the edge of my street and I'm like with my hands in the air, looking at them, and they just look at me like, man, whatever. You know, and it to me is did the road work downtown. It diverted the traffic, and they liked it. They say, oh wait, hey, we like this, and it stayed that way ever since, just flying by. That's again, I don't want to keep harping on the same subject, but I wanted to speak. I can attest to what these gentlemen are saying in the 2 years that I've been here.
Okay.
Out of control.
It's useless for the police, the PD, to pass at 8:30 in the morning. It's useless for them to pass after 5 o'clock.
And they see him, they up at that hill, they have the advantage. They're looking down at him, they see him there, they slow down.
And if they
Okay.
park next to Dion Park, thinking they're gonna see them.
In traffic.
There's no, I tell them, get on 21st Avenue, go up maybe 150 feet on 21st and stay there. Says, oh, it's entrapment.
I'm all for a speed bump, I'm telling you. I heard that there was an issue with them on 19th Avenue. People were saying that they were an inconvenience. To me, it sounds like they were working. Because we gotta slow down for them. Well, that's, they're working. That's what you have to do.
I asked this year for the speed bump.
I know it's an
You
inconvenience.
gotta go to 3 departments. It didn't go anywhere.
Okay. Is there anybody else that wants to talk about the speeding on Fox Street?
Something else I just saw last night, going on Main Street, and I see one of the vehicles was squealing tires, and there was a smoke all over the place on Main Street coming out of Kmart. A big black mark on the tire on Main Street. So I just thought I'd just bring this up tonight for today.
Okay. So noted. Mr. Bollier?
Your park has no indication
So that,
whatsoever that it's a children's park or anything. You don't see anything. There's no signs or anything.
Kids don't pay attention.
Okay.
That's all I gotta say on that.
Okay. Any board members have questions? You got a concern about signage?
Yeah, can we take action tonight to get a sign put up at the park?
Need a motion?
Yeah.
Well, I'd make the motion to put up a sign.
I'll second that.
Okay.
At least to start there.
Second.
Yep.
Children playing or
Children at
park or
play,
something
slow
like
down,
that.
yeah.
Play, slow
They're
down.
pretty
We do have a little yellow sign, it's about this big. Not far from the hydrant, from the fire hydrant, but all it says is pedestrian.
Right.
Okay. But you're saying we should put children at play?
Children at play, slow down,
I'm
yeah.
And
wondering
both ends.
Right.
if we should have a white line crossway.
That would help the situation.
Slow them down.
I mean, it's a freeway.
Does your motion include a crosswalk?
Well, we should close on this.
Okay,
motion.
well, just wanna know. The motion is just for signage right now.
For
Two
signage.
signs, both directions.
Right.
Correct? You second that motion?
I did.
Okay. Any more discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Against? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know how soon we can do this, but,
Hey, we gotta start somewhere.
okay.
They've seen the town out there putting the signs in that's saying, hey, they've taken notice.
I wonder if we could have a discussion with Ross too. just
Yeah,
to
just
see
step up
what-
patrol a little bit, maybe just to see.
I think Gary can do that.
Just,
You're the people that can enforce the department.
Yes.
Should be doing.
Doing their job.
So,
he said between 3:30 and 4:30 or whatever, so.
Yeah.
I'm sure that that's basically when
Okay.
school gets out too, you know.
See if,
Once they start giving the tickets,
Yep.
it's gonna
change the whole situation.
It's gonna be talked about in
That's
town.
right. They need to
And
know.
you need to ticket all over the place, not this. When I go down to Van Buren, when you come to, Willett, Turkey Farm, going to Van Buren, you know, you gotta
You
slow
gotta slow
down,
down.
because they ticket over there. The same thing in Fort Kent, when you come down to the 40 mile an hour You bet. From,
Ford Garage, there, Ford Garage.
no, from, the guy that cuts the wood,
JRS.
Oh, yeah, JR Sailor,
all the way to town.
yeah.
Nobody's speeding because they know they're gonna get caught. Now, in Madawaska, outside people tell me, nothing's happening in Madawaska. We can do whatever we want, and that's the honest truth.
Okay.
I've never seen a copy of a ticket of anybody in town here.
Well, they did last year to a lady, and it was not a ticket, it was a
Keep it
warning.
going.
Okay.
The next week, she came back and did the same thing.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak before the board? Mr. Rudy?
Just a minute. Nothing is happening here, and I haven't heard anything about ATVs. ATVs, they all have books to go by, the law, 1 mile an hour on the right-hand side of the road, not in between or both sides, on the left-hand side. I've been an ATV rider for over 40 years, and I've been taking care of the trails for years. And that's how it's okay.
We
I've
could-
had that before, I've brought that before.
Could be a question to bring up to the ATV club too.
Yeah.
That, that there is supposed to be taken care of by the game warden. The game warden should go after those ATVs. They're the only ones that got the
Authority.
power over them.
Those that are going fast right now, I bet you they're not even registered.
Could be. Okay.
But Officer Pelletier, Jim,
Mhm.
wrote an excellent article last year in the Valley Times in reference to ATVs and the law. He should.
Post it
He
again.
should post it again.
Yeah.
And there's gotta be some, make him write a nice article like that for the vehicles. If you're gonna speak, your electronic sign out there by McDonald's there for the past week, welcome to Madawaska. Why don't you say speed, you're gonna, like they do on the 95, you know, buckle up or you're gonna get caught, well, if you speed, you're gonna get ticketed. Put that on the sign, wake them up.
I was just wondering that.
Somebody's gotta be aware,
Okay.
somebody.
Hearing none, we're going to stop the public participation and move on to regular articles. Thank you for your information. Is there any business that needs to be adjusted on the agenda?
No.
Hearing none, move on. Next article is to consider the board minutes of June 29,
Yeah, make a motion to accept the board meetings in June 29th.
Make a motion, we accept.
seconded by
Yep, second.
Chris. Are there any corrections or omissions in the minutes?
They all look good to me.
Hearing none, we have a motion. All those in favor of the approving the minutes? Those against? Motion carries. Article 3 is to consider board and ambulance director comments in response to Real Abad's concern regarding response time to the Madawaska Ambulance Department. Monsieur Abad?
Yeah, when I read this, first of all, I told the board that I wanted a phone call when you had the meeting. Any of you call me? Did any one of you call me? Did any secretary call me there was a meeting tonight? Just wondered, the only thing I asked.
And I can answer that, Mr. Hebert.
Please do.
The plan was to call you today.
And?
Well, by the time Natalie got back from our VRF meeting,
Oh,
you had already came to pick up an agenda.
that's right. But why did I pick up an agenda? Because I didn't know. Somebody told me there's a meeting tonight.
But we were gonna call you.
No, I don't want your sad story. You had what, a week?
Agenda was only made last Thursday.
Yeah, the agenda was posted Thursday.
Yeah, but nobody told me, and I put it on the air that you give me a call, so that the people will know about it. But on this, when you read this, to consider Board of Ambulance Director's comments, that's it, in response to the ABAS concerns regarding response time. So that's it? That's this call? Boy, I'm wondering, I'm not even asked to say if I have an opinion going to this. Opinions from him, right, when you read it?
Yeah,
No, we,
You have an agenda?
if you were not have been here, it would have been tabled.
Yeah, but I mean, it says to consider Board of the Ambulance Director's comments. Ambulance Director is him.
Yes?
It's not me.
Does he have any comments?
We're not gonna stop him from answering. I mean,
Yeah.
I take the way that we worded the article, Mr. Hebert, is that you asked the board for some answers,
Yeah.
and that's what they're trying to do, and they, you know, they work with me and Eric to provide an outline of what the efforts are being made.
That's me.
Can I finish? Yes.
Go ahead.
So we asked the director to put together an outline of things that he could work on, or things that we've done to improve, retain and recruit employees and improve response times, and he's done that. He's provided comments to the board because he's the one that runs that department. And that's what we're here to relay to you today, because that's what you asked for last week. You wanted a response from us in public, and that's what we are trying to give you. And I don't think anybody here is going to shut you down from making further comments, but I think the board is ready to address
Okay.
some of your concerns.
Well, for those that don't know, when my wife had a seizure, I authorized my signature to get a response from the 911 call. 28 minutes for the ambulance came to my house. It was on the road from Caribou to Van Buren to Madawaska. Come to find out, last meeting, there's no standby in Madawaska. There was none. And he told us, if you call the station, there's no answer because there's nobody there. Oh. So, what's the problem? 28 minutes, now, because the responder told me, stay with me, don't blame me, stay with me. But when the ambulance backed up in my driveway, I said, they're here. So he cut me off, which he had told me. When we get the documentation from the 911 call, 28 minutes. By the time I called, by the time they were in my driveway. Now, it probably took 3-4 minutes before they told their story, get their gurney out, and get it in before it goes to the hospital. But my question is, if nobody knows, there's nobody on standby, is this a DC shuttle or shuffle, or what's this thing? There's nobody, you mean to tell me there's nobody that can cover when the ambulance leaves? Is this what we're being told?
Nope.
Well, what happened?
There's some days because of short staffing, we might not have a standby crew, but we have mutual aid, such as Van Buren or Fort Kent. Now, that day Fort Kent had no ambulance to respond because they too were busy. Van Buren, we were pretty much almost in Van Buren at that time. They dispatched Van Buren, but by the time our ambulance came through their town, they hadn't even taken off yet. Because they're not at the station, unfortunately. They're not like us. So at that point, they canceled Van Buren because they weren't even gone, and so they just kept going and they responded.
And it's a fact.
And yes, and they responded.
Documented fact.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, probably 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I was talking to a guy in the ambulance department in Fort Kent. And he was telling me, he says, we have people on standby who are paid X. All right? If they receive a call, they'll get full pay. Now, the X, he didn't tell me how they've got it. You know, if you're on standby, if we're both on standby, we'll be paid, say, $40 or $50. I don't know. And he said, if we go out, then we'll get paid for the call, which is another amount of money. Now, it seems that I must be wrong, because what's the solution? You know, are the people really sick? Or when I was talking the DC shuffle, that's what I'm talking about. Are the people really sick, or they're just off because they're getting money to be off?
You mean staff members?
I'm saying, if you don't have anybody else, you've only got 2 people on working. Does that mean you've got nobody left out there? By what you said.
Oftentimes there is, but there's a couple of reasons sometimes that a staff member can have the day off is because we also have to have a personal life on the side. We can't be on all the time. I hope you understand.
Oui.
Number 2 is that a lot of our part-timers that we have in our list, they can't live off a part-time job, so they have to have another job. So unfortunately, they're already working somewhere else making a living. This is our biggest obstacle with that.
Does the fire department have an EMT staff that could go to the emergency while you're on the way to the emergency?
So, my next question is, I think, I'll ask the gentleman from the middle, you're not a local person. So, what do you think of what's happening in Madawaska? Your opinion?
I can tell you, Mr. Hebert, I worked for an ambulance service for many years, straight out of high school in Dixmont, in the central Maine area, right outside of Bangor. And there was never a guarantee, even if you had 2 or 3 ambulances at any given time, anybody would be able to respond to you. And that's the unfortunate part. When you live in a rural area like this, we struggle. We're one of the fortunate towns that have our own ambulance service here available to us. We have great backup from local, other communities, other services. There's never a time where you can guarantee. We just don't have the ability to go out and tell people they're going to be here on standby. You know what I mean? Even if we had a second rig on standby, there's no guarantee that if your emergency arrived prior to mine, that I'm going to get an ambulance or vice versa. You know what I mean? Even if you had a crew here, they could have been dispatched out to the other side of town. You know, it's no different when the fire department was fighting the fire for the apartment building and we had another fire. There's not a standby fire department. So, and those are the unfortunate circumstances.
Yeah, for me, and I'm born and raised, probably kicked the bucket here. This is news for me. I always thought that there was an ambulance service, there was somebody on standby.
Unfortunately, they're
No.
Did you guys know that there's nobody on standby?
No,
But you
Mr.
guys
Ayala.
know that? You're active in the community? Did you know it?
I've got a comment on that.
Okay,
All I knew is, there's two.
No.
There's 2 ambulances.
Address
There's 2
the,
more, there's 2 more.
I've got
address the board, Mr. Bass.
Okay.
the ideal situation and what is supposed to happen is there's supposed to be a crew working, a crew on standby. That's the norm. That's what's supposed to happen. Okay? But due to some circumstances, that crew that day, there was no backup crew because they were all the crew was off or they were working somewhere else. They could not get somebody to staff it. You go to McDonald's right now, they close early because they can't find staff. You go to almost any other location, they're closing early because they can't find staff. On a normal day, there is a crew on call. There's a crew at the station. There's a crew on call. That's normal. But in that day, that couldn't happen.
And I'd like to add that most of those, when we do have home during the day, our nights are covered near 99.5% of the time with 2 crews. It's just 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. is where we run into some holes. But the nights are well covered because then my part-timers are at home. They don't mind being on standby when they're at home when they're not working. But
Could it be that if you give him a stipend to be on standby of X amount of money, I don't know. But the gentleman that told me that was from Fort Kent, and there's probably more volume in Fort Kent than there is in Madawaska.
we do
So-
have a $2 an hour pay rate for people on standby. Because it's still voluntary, but if they do standby, they get paid $2 an hour to be on standby. And then if they get called in, then they're paid their hourly rate for the amount of hours that they come in for.
So it does exist here?
Yeah, it does. It's always
Do you know that?
Yeah.
Somebody
Eric,
spoke about it.
How many part-timers do you have?
Part-timers, between licensed personnel and drivers, we have around 16 or 17.
And how does the word get out if they're needed?
Well, every morning we put out the list. Oh, I post a monthly schedule for standby. People can sign up where they want to. And then every morning we assess that need for standby that day. If the schedule's already filled, great, we send that to the Aroostook County Sheriff's Office and they can call whenever there's another call.
Okay.
So it goes to the sheriff's department?
Yes. And then if there's holes, then we make an effort that morning, every morning, to try to fill those holes. And if we don't get any takers,
So what happens then?
then we tell the Sheriff's Department that our mutual aid department will be the one covering. It's gonna be either ASI or Van Buren. So then when the first ambulance goes out, they automatically know, okay, we need to call ASI or Van Buren to come cover this call.
Go ahead,
Now,
Jason?
there's also a third option too, which you have mentioned as well. I've seen time where the primary crew, the day crew is out, the backup crew is out, and a third call comes in, and there's also the pager option that they've used often, where the members have radios they carry with them, and if there's a third ambulance that's needed, they get paged out. Anybody who's available, please respond. So there's also that third option. So they're pretty covered if the people are available. They've got that
The
option.
city's got a list of over 10 people.
Yeah, I'm wondering, how come you have 16 or 18 of them?
16 people, I think maybe 10 of those are drivers. They can't go nowhere without a licensed provider on the ambulance. So they can only be on if there's at least an EMT with them. So I can't put just 2 drivers on an ambulance, unfortunately. But they are a wealth of help for us.
Yeah.
You know, because on those days where I can only find an EMT, hey, if there's a driver that can be on, that's great. Now I got a crew. But, you know, I can't put 2 drivers together.
Okay. In your report, you mentioned that you're going to be offering classes to train more people.
Yep, our hope is there, Bristol Region EMS just got a new director there, so we're kind of working out all the kinks with the new director, and we're hoping that, we're gonna get an EMT class fall maybe.
Okay.
What about an incentive, $2, I mean, staying home for 12 hours for $24. You're not gonna find too many people who are smart enough to stay home for $2. What about an incentive? You ever thought about that?
Oh, I'm giving it some thought, yes.
I think what you're talking more about is you're looking at an emergency reason. And if nobody's available for an emergency, who can get there and take care of the situation? I think that's more.
No.
I mean, you can have all these people on
I'm
standby,
just
but if they're at
repeating,
another job or
I'm gonna
whatever.
stop. I'm just repeating what was said last time I was here.
Yeah.
There was never mention of having standby at $2. We were told there was nobody on standby.
That day.
I referred to that moment in
But if
time.
you've got 10, 12, 14 people, there's bound to have 2. You know, it's getting a little serious.
And I'd like to add too, that part of this part-time list are some people that live out of town, and even some of our full-timers. So they're not gonna stay in town for 2 months an hour.
Yeah.
So that.
Is that the standard for the area? That $2 per hour?
Yeah. I'm not sure what ASI is doing now. Van Buren, I don't even think Van Buren has a backup right now. They're in a.
Why don't you contact?
I'm not sure what they charge. I wanna say, how would they pay? Caribou Fire and those guys on that area, I think it's $250. If I'm not mistaken, it's not a whole lot more.
$2.50 an hour.
$250 an hour, they don't say about this.
Try to get that in writing. Try to get that in writing from Caribou or Fort Kent, whatever they're paying.
I can do the homework, and I called them before.
Okay, we'll review that.
Well.
Okay.
We're gonna move on.
Okay.
We did a statement.
That's, who the hell's going to stand by for $2 and I understand.
I know.
You know, you've got 14 people, 16 people out there. Nice day like this, you know, where are you gonna be? You know, you're gonna stand by for $2 an
Can I
hour.
get a copy of the phone?
That's a valid point.
You didn't get a report? Copy of the report?
There should be a,
A copy of what you decided to.
You can have,
yep.
you can have the comments that were provided here. I'll give you mine, if I can get them out of here, Jen.
Hey, I'll be honest, I don't believe everything's being said here. Because you're not gonna find anybody at $2 an hour to stay home.
So you don't think that's truthful?
I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think so. Would you stay home for $2?
Well, no, I'm not saying that I would, but I'm saying that,
Would I stay
that,
home? No.
I'm saying that,
Stay home? No, you will not.
no, I'm not saying, yeah, but when you say what you're hearing is truthful, that information that's being given to you is still a truthful statement. I'm not saying that I'm gonna stay home if I was on standby for $2 an hour.
No.
You're right, I more than likely would
A
not.
while ago, you said they had 12, 14,
Yes.
16. They could line them up, who's who want to be on standby. At $2 an hour, do you have standby where you work? That pay $2 an hour?
We contribute to a lot of ambulance services all over Aroostook County, and they all have the same situation.
$2?
I don't know about the price, I'm saying that the same problem exists everywhere.
No, I agree.
Yeah, I can see that could be an issue right there.
Yeah.
It would be great, it would be better for those who are on call if they had more money, to incentivize recruiting more people to be on call. But I can tell you, just recruiting people to work in the workforce right now, never mind on
That's the
call,
problem.
is a problem.
No, that I agree 100%.
Okay.
I can't disagree with you.
It is a problem for the municipalities, it's a problem for business of all types. Right now, trying to find people to work is tough. And I will put a plug in for this ambulance department every day of the week, every day of the year. I hold them, a high regard for them for what they do. I put them against any ambulance department in the county for what they do. We have a it's not perfect, Real. Mr. Hebert, I agree. Could we, in a perfect world, get those call times down? It would be fantastic, and there's nothing I'd love to see more. But it's not a perfect world, and we have to work with what we have. And I can tell you that this department uses their resources wisely, and they provide a fantastic service to this community and surrounding communities. So can we do better? There's always room for improvement, everywhere. We can strive to do better, absolutely. And we can work and we can be innovative and try and figure out different ways. But recruiting employees right now in any line of work, being full-time, part-time, or on-call, it's tough. It's really tough.
Well, you probably should think of getting the official amount from these departments, how much you're paying their standby. And you will be the first one to apologize. And I'll come personally the next meeting to apologize. If they have people that are on standby, say 12 hours for $2 an hour. And if you find them in writing, I'll come and apologize. And I sincerely think that I won't have to apologize. I'm not at the end of my word. Those are heavy words. Okay? And do the shopping. Do Fort Kent, do Van Buren, do Caribou, do Pascal. What do you pay for standby? What are the conditions? Then we'll know if we're under if we should go to 3, 4, 5 to get standby. Because right now you need somebody on standby. Because what you're looking for is a problem. A major problem.
Are you talking standby, staying at the station?
No, you can stay home. You're gonna stay home for $2 an hour, 12
Unless it's an
hours.
emergency.
Guaranteed you're gonna answer the phone. Guaranteed you're
Well,
gonna
yeah,
answer
they
the
have their
phone.
cell
Probably
phone.
move on.
Yeah.
Can you address the board, please?
Yeah, stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, they answer the phone if they're on.
Yeah, does that answer your questions?
Wait.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on from there on. I mean, thank you very much.
Only 2 minutes.
Okay. Okay, Article 4 is to consider a request by student and staff at the Madawaska Middle and High School for a Gaga pit at the Bicentennial Park. And we have a petition.
No,
I don't know what a Gaga pit is, so educate me on that one.
Yeah, what is that anyway?
It's an octagon pit, or go ahead, Gary, if you want.
So it's an octagon box, if you will. It's about
It's a big sandbar.
two walls are like 24 inches tall, maybe a little bit more. And kids play in there and they throw a ball at each other, a softball, and you try to tag each other out.
It's similar to like a dodgeball, but it's inside a pit.
Right.
Okay.
And the schools have them already.
Is this something you build or something you buy already made, or?
No, sometimes it's local carpenters build it. You can buy, Chris found one online, an official one, like plastic, and it's got the components.
Installs and comes
A
out.
couple $1,000.
Not that much, or?
But I mean, they are popular for kids. Kids love playing.
That's a new-
those and-
How big is it?
They come in various sizes. I wanna say the one that I got a quote on would hold up to like 26 kids or something like that. or
Really?
something.
Okay.
And their request was at the Bicentennial Park, where they have music in the park, where the younger kids have the jungle gym and whatever, and the older kids have really nothing there to do. So that was one of the requests. I know it's pretty huge. It's very popular amongst the youthful kids who have the energy to do that for hours on end, but
Is there funding for this, some type, where we can find money, or?
So the only place with, assuming that we run with tight budgets, the only place that I see us potentially going in is to our recreational facilities reserve account. But we've been putting money in there to redo the surface at the tennis court at Birch Point. Because we have a depression there and it fills with water and then it gets slippery. And we had gotten quotes to shim that, to correct the surface, but it's not really a good fix, a lasting fix. So the board of a few years ago decided to start, and we were looking at $20,000-$30,000 fix there.
Okay.
And so let's start putting some money aside into that. Created the recreational facilities reserve account. So I think that account language is broad enough to be able to cover this expense from there, but we would in turn be
Delaying.
well, we wouldn't necessarily be delaying, but I think that maybe next year when we appropriate back to the reserve account, we
Make
would
it
make
back
up
up.
the
We can
difference.
make this,
make up the difference.
Yeah.
the difference.
To me, this seems like a,
And this would be part of recreation.
Yeah, I mean, the parks, recreation department, Parks and Recs maintain all of our parks.
Okay.
I would think they'd be the ones that could install or uninstall in the winter time, so it doesn't stay,
Yeah.
weather's years of service or
it's,
whatever.
it sounds to me like it would take a huge amount of space, though. If we're talking about the park here, I mean, you're talking a pit there that can hold 25,
I think
26 people.
It's not that big.
I think it would probably end up going somewhere near the Bell.
That's what I would think.
There's a lot of people that have been saying the Bell should be somewhere else.
Yeah.
The building that's protecting it is in rough shape.
An
The
actual
bell has
site, it's
actually
not that
fallen
big.
in on the inside. And
Really?
we should put that somewhere else, and I think that would be a level enough area.
Yeah.
Probably one of the only level areas at the park where we could
Potentially
situate
do
that.
it.
Unless, we could do it elsewhere, but I think we'd have to do some site work and to level it out.
I mean, I'd be interested in making a motion if you guys think we can.
I think we should.
I'll make a motion that we purchase and have a Gaga pit installed at Bicentennial Park.
I'll second.
Second. Yeah. Is there any discussion on this? Is there a set amount of money we're spending, or?
What's your quote?
I think the quote I found was for 1,700. That was off a commercial provider. It was like a blown molded plastic, so it was lightweight.
Maybe
And
Sam
you
can get it through.
You could make
disco,
it
discount?
permanent or removable.
Yeah. So what would your limit be, I guess, if you wanted to say it's
We got install fees on that too, so.
Not to exceed $3
Doesn't
grand?
look.
not to exceed 2,000?
I would say 2,000, to be honest with you. I don't think there's a significant price. In fact, most of that, you can almost drop it on any ground and pull it up
Okay.
later. But at the park, you'd probably want to make it semi-permanent so it's not tampered with or something maybe, but.
You want to change?
Not to
Modify it.
exceed, not to exceed $2,000.
Okay. And you're okay with
I'll-
that? Second
yeah,
that?
I'll second that
Okay.
change.
So we have a motion, the maximum limit of what, 2,000?
Yep.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
Gerald, good project, Gerald.
Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion? Those against?
Guess what
Motion
you're doing
carries.
tomorrow.
We have a Gaga bit.
I think we can afford it.
Can't afford to get back in. Could the Bell be moved over to where the Veterans Park is, the Veterans whole area?
Possibly.
That would look pretty good.
To consider a proposal by the County of Aroostook to provide American Rescue Plan Fund administration for the town of Madawaska.
So, glad Ryan called today. He's like, hey, can I stop in?
Perfect.
So, I'll have to think about it. Get back to you. No, seriously.
I've been quiet.
You should have said no.
Basically, I'll just do a little intro and then Ryan can talk about it. But so under the American Rescue Plan, there's going to be funding coming to towns and municipalities and cities. And Madawaska's funding is going to be about $400,000, 414 or something like that. And it can only be spent on very specific purposes. It's infrastructure, sewer and water, projects or broadband. You can use it to replace lost revenue. And there's a whole calculation to that. You got to use the year prior to COVID as your base year for your benchmark for revenue, and you measure back, comparing. Towns really haven't lost revenue due to COVID. So we wouldn't be able to really use that effectively, if you will. The towns that are using probably the lost revenue formula of that are the towns that run the civic centers like Bangor, the Cross Center, the Augusta Civic Center, Portland. Those entities lost a lot of revenue because they had to close those facilities down and let go people. So for us, we're looking at infrastructure projects, and we're still waiting on a little bit more guidance. And that money from the feds is gonna come in 2 tranches. It's gonna be 2 separate installments. And it needs to be spent by 2024 for specific purposes. And there'll be an audit, potentially, there's guidelines for how this is to be spent on, what is to be spent on, when it is to be spent. And what the county's proposing, Ryan had huddled up the town managers and offered to see, kind of feel out whether there would be some interest in this. And so he set up a meeting for us at the county a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, to pitch a proposal to create a position at the county, which will be funded primarily from funds it's at 2% of whatever you're getting. In our case, it would be about $8,000, more or less. And that person would be the fund administrator, if you will, for all of the towns that subscribe to that service, to make sure that we're deploying those monies the way that we're supposed to and track them and all that stuff. So there's a lot of red tape associated with this. There's a lot of work associated with using these monies. And I think, there was a pretty innovative thought to put forth a proposal like that. So with that said, if you got questions about the concept and the plan, and if there's anything to talk about, it's all yours.
Gary highlighted the local part of this, and I guess the only thing I would add is the county, in addition to the money that each town is receiving, the county's gonna be receiving about $13 million for projects. And what we've decided to do is basically divide that up in the 3 regions of the county, and make that money available to towns, eligible nonprofits, and quasi-municipal entities like Madawaska Water District, for example, or those type of entities that may want to use some of their funds and access some of our funds as match. So this program administrator position, in addition to doing the things Gary was talking about, is also going to be ensuring compliance for the monies that the county receives and then reinvest back to the municipalities. The way the guidance has come down so far is they've given us like a 165-page playbook and said, here's the guidance, but you determine if the project meets the guidance and meets the eligibility. Oh, and if we find out, 2 or 3 years later when we audit you that you didn't spend the money, then you're on the hook for paying it back. So we're not interested in being in that situation, so that's why we're hiring the position. We're not requiring any municipality to participate in this consortium in order to be eligible to apply for the funds. So if you did not want to do this, you still could apply for our county funds. The only thing would be if you put in a project and it would be funded, at that point we would enter into an agreement with you. You would have no choice in that if you wanted the funds to pay us for the compliance at a billable hourly rate of whatever that person's cost is going to be, because it would only be fair that those towns that are participating as part of their contract and those that don't would have to pay for that. So that's the only thing there. Right now, I can tell you that here in the valley, we've got Grand Isle, Frenchville, New Canada, Fort Kent signed up last night. Senegal is taking it up tomorrow. St. Francis, and I think there's one more I just can't think of that I know of for sure. And then we have probably 5 or 6 other towns that have signed on in Central Aroostook and Southern Aroostook as well. So our goal was to get about 20 towns participating. We felt that was a good number. Estimated that 20 towns, that would mean that 1/3 of the cost of this position would be funded by the locals, and 2/3 would be funded by our ARPA funds, which is an eligible expense. I told one town manager yesterday that this person will be available to you for your compliance reporting, which is gonna be different than ours, you're getting your money through the state. And so your reporting will be back up to the state, which will then have to report to the feds, which is what we have to do. Because we're getting the money directly from the feds, we have to report it back to the feds. So that's the only difference between where the reporting happens. But, unless you have questions, I think that's all I really have to add.
Would this person assist in accounting of that monies also?
Well, they work with your local accounting process, so
Okay.
whoever your finance person is,
Okay.
is gonna have to track it on your books.
Okay.
But the reporting piece of it, if Carol had questions or whatever, then yes, that person will be available for that.
Okay.
But this position is really more about the compliance piece of it, like making sure the money you spend is an eligible project. And yeah, if you pick water and wastewater, then yeah, sure, that's pretty no-brainer. But if you don't know what's out there, you don't know if someone's gonna come to you with a great idea to do something with economic development in the Kmart parking area, for example, and then you
Yeah.
figure out, okay, is that eligible or not? That's where it becomes a little gray area. There's so much to it, and I've tried to stay on top of it myself as much as possible, but we made a decision about a month and a half ago that regardless of what the towns do, we're using our money to hire this position so that we have someone dedicated just to do that.
Okay. The other question I have, it says 2%, is that paid as the money comes in?
No, so eventually you're gonna get, like, the state asked for a waiver for 30 days before they started, because they couldn't, the state didn't have a mechanism to get that money out to all of the towns, so they asked the feds for a waiver, so that's why we left it blank. Gary's right, the amount is estimated at 400,000, and that's what we expect it's gonna be for Madawaska. But we just left it blank because we didn't wanna put a number in there just in case it was off by a few dollars. You're gonna get it, like Gary said, in 2 tranches, so what we would do is once a town signs up for it, and we know what your amount is, we will invoice you for that 2% amount. And then really, if you wanna pay it in 2 installments, you can, or if you wanna just pay it all out of that first
Okay.
allotment, you can. It's really up to you, whatever's easier, I guess, for your accounting and your process.
So we have that flexibility.
You have that flexibility, yeah. We're just gonna basically invoice you. It's very similar to how we do your dispatching agreement. Is the model, I think the agreement, did you include the sample agreement in their package?
Yeah.
So I just basically use the same
Okay.
language that we have for the dispatch service agreements and just changed it for our budget. Very similar to that.
It's the only question I
And
have.
it's a 2% one time.
Yes.
That covers you for the entire 5 years.
So it's a 5-year.
Yeah, one correction, the 2024 year is how quickly you have to have the money obligated. But if you have obligated, like let's say you sign a contract to do a sewer extension project in November of 2024, you don't have to have that sewer project done by December. You have an additional 2 years to get the project done.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's
But it has to be
actually-
allocated for a
It
project.
has to be allocated by 2024, spent by 2026.
Okay. Any questions, board members?
Nope, that's the only question
We
I
have a
have is
motion?
how
Yep.
long.
I'll make a motion to accept the proposal by the County of Aroostook to provide the American Rescue Plan Fund administration to the town.
I would second that.
Seconded by Chris. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion carries.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Send me the thing in the mail here?
Yeah.
I'll send you the bill after you send me the. Now, you probably won't see a bill actually for a little while because the state hasn't even.
Yeah.
figured out what they're gonna do.
Article 6, to consider lease financing the new ambulance for the ambulance department.
So I want, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Explain why we're revisiting this. Because we, back in, during the budgeting process there, we talked about buying the ambulance outright from reserves, but what precipitated this second look at what we had decided was when Eric with the ambulance department and the fire department, they did an ambulance training, ATV training, rescue training. And they discovered that the ATV rescue for the fire department was kaput pretty much. And so they had found another one that they thought they could buy, And Eric had talked maybe potentially using some of his ambulance fund reserve fund to assist the fire department in purchasing a replacement ATV would be approved by you guys, of course. But then I explained to Eric that the ambulance reserve funds have to be used for that department only, and they can't be used for the fire department. The fire department has a reserve fund they could use if they wanted to make that request. It's almost a moot point because the machine has been sold. It was sold yesterday, and so we missed a vote on that one.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So, because Jim would have prepared, he actually prepared a request to take from reserves for today. It would have been other business, but Jim came in, he prepared all the paperwork, and then within the hour he called me back and he said it's already sold. So we missed a chance on that. So I guess we'll keep looking for another good deal, and if you guys think that makes sense, then we'll move on that. So. But getting back to why we're revisiting this, I talked with Carol about it, she printed out the detail, and, lo and behold, you have an account balance in reserves of less than $100,000 in the ambulance department. I think when we had this discussion last winter, I don't think we were really thinking about what we would be taking from reserves to reduce taxes, that $250, right? And so I asked Richard as the chair, and I talked to Carol. I said, "You think it's prudent to put this back before the board for reconsideration? We don't have it. We've not bought it yet, but it's here. It's done its tour, its demo tour, if you will, and it's being set up for the town right now. So we'd still have the opportunity to do a lease finance agreement, and that would free us up with capital reserve better. We would incur some finance charge. Don't get me wrong. But I think that this would be better for the ambulance department reserve account, cash flow wise, moving forward. So with that said, Eric went out to Autotronics and asked them for some options, and you have those in front of you.
And this is lease to own.
Lease to own, yep. And a lot of municipalities today, Richard, that's what they do.
Yeah.
All the plow trucks, graders, payloaders, they do lease financing, and it's basically a loan. You pay the lease and it's yours at the end of the agreement. The interest rates are really good, I find, 1.75 for 3 years, 1.9 for 5. To me, I'm thinking that the 3-year lease would make the most sense. And we have, Carol, one more year? One more payment left on the one we have?
But that would also include a payment this year.
Yes.
So there'd be 2 payments for
Well,
the
we have-
ambulance,
Yes.
and then 2 more.
Yeah.
Well, the one was already been made the one for the last ambulance we bought has already been made.
Yeah, that's already been accounted
So
for.
there's not, right, so there'll be one more next April along with the second one from this one.
Right.
Yeah.
Decide to go the third.
And when do you expect to take ownership of this one?
Within the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, they're cutting the decals up now, and we're gonna be selling that, doing all the other little adjustments on it, and then, as soon as that's ready.
Okay.
So I guess this was already voted on by the previous board and accepted at the town meeting, so how can we change that if it's already been voted by the taxpayers?
The taxpayers didn't vote on this, the board voted on
Yeah.
acquiring that.
Yeah, but wasn't there a warrant to say to transfer the money to purchase new ambulance?
No,
I thought there was.
no, because you guys are the trustees of the reserve
Right.
account. So, it's up to you, the town authorizes you to be the trust of the reserve account, to draw from there when needed. You don't need tax, you already have that authorization, so there is nothing in the article in the warrant that talks about the ambulance payment per se. It just talks about ambulance reserve account.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if there's a change, the courtesy to the finance committee given to let them know that we're not outright buying this, but we're gonna lease it? Because they were
No.
part of the discussion.
Yeah.
They were
No,
privy to it.
there hasn't been.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it could be something they could be, so they don't find out next year during the budget process what happened.
We could let them know, yes.
Just an email, let them know changes.
Mm.
So the line of communication keeps going, no one's left out of the loop.
I think cash flow wise, it makes absolute sense to do the lease option versus bringing that account down to a lower balance.
Yeah.
I looked at all three of those options, and to me, I feel like the ambulance generates enough revenue to offset that cost on a 3-year term pretty handedly at this point, rather than stretch it out and pay more. But, I mean, I'll make the motion that we accept the 3-year lease term on the new ambulance.
And notifying the finance committee
Yeah, I'll add that in there, that we notify the finance committee.
of our decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Second by Doug. Any discussion on this?
Can I ask Eric, how many miles do you normally put on an ambulance in a year?
Anywhere from 12 to 15,000.
So
Not that bad.
your ambulance is good till, or should be reliable for at least, what, 5 years, 10 years?
Oh, we try to go 10 years with them.
Yep.
The one we're getting rid of here is 11 years old.
Yeah, you did mention that.
Our biggest obstacle right here is the salt in the soil.
Yep.
We do our best we can to keep the rates. I have taken steps to do more preventative maintenance, something we've never done before. And certainly, this new ambulance is getting undercoated. We've never did that.
Perfect, that's what I
Okay.
asked.
The last one we just purchased, it didn't see much of the winters. I preserved that one over the winters over the last few years. So I'm gonna have it undercoated before this winter. And then the middle one, the 2015, Kevin and his crew since there was already starting to rust, undercoating wasn't really an option, but they did a fluid film.
Mhm.
So we're certainly gonna take those steps to try to do more prevention when it comes to the rust and corrosion. But yeah, I mean, on average, every 10 years or so is when you see an ambulance kind of.
A heated garage is the worst thing.
It
the
is,
worst thing
it
is-
is.
And
But then
they wash, you know,
you got
guys
equipment
wash
in
your
there.
vehicles and
You don't have
there's a
much
lot of
choice.
humidity in there. But it needs to be heated, right?
You can't run out with cold oxygen and.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
we
just-
don't have the greatest ventilation, and what happens in those, that garage, and we changed the fuel tanks on the Chevy chassis a couple of times, is that it doesn't dry in that garage.
Ah.
There's no ventilation, and the floors can stay wet days on end in there sometimes, unfortunately.
That's why I had talked about radiant heat in the floors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
it would keep your floors dry.
Right.
I think I thought the recovery time was better for a room, and I guess I was wrong on that, but it does dry out your floors.
Is there an air exchanger in there?
We have a ventilation system that was disconnected years ago, because it was pulling the heat out of the building. And
Ah.
the previous, fire chief had wanted to try to save electricity or conserve heat. He rewired that. I talked to Gerald about that, and he had everything was still there. It was just a matter of rewiring the motor, and they put the vent on a timer so we can use it. That has helped a little bit, absolutely. We've noticed that the drying is much faster than it used to be. It's still a little bit of an issue. It's very moist, very.
Hmm.
I think we got a fan, but, that would maybe move some air around a little bit too. Might help, but we're limited on space, so where we're gonna put a fan, it's not a very big garage either, so.
Gerald?
No, that was, you talked about the fan, the ceiling fan.
Yes.
That was the
Okay.
next option,
I
moving
think,
the air around.
I think we could get one in there, it just, we have to get that to work.
Okay.
I think still have a motion in a second.
I think the cost of doing a remedy would probably be cheaper than what it costs to replace the ambulances more often. So I don't know if we could do something like a dehumidifying system in there, or some sort of like a heat pump that can regulate the temperature and dehumidify at the same time. Maybe the cost of that, if it saves you 6 months on every ambulance you buy for the next 30 years,
I'd like to stretch it to 11 or 12 years, or, if not longer if we can.
Yeah.
But it's, that way we could certainly get something to reduce the moisture in there. I think that would certainly help.
Okay. So, motion?
And already
Second.
seconded.
Second by Doug. So, all in favor? Those against? Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Article 7 is consider candidates to be appointed to the town planning board.
So
We have a list.
we did a lot of work trying to find interested persons to serve on the planning board. We currently have 5 seats that are open. 2 of them have been vacant since 2019. We spent quite a bit of time and money advertising over the last couple of years, and it just, it doesn't turn up a lot of interested persons. But we do have a slate of candidates here that are available to be on the planning board.
So, I guess I'm looking for a motion, is that what you're?
Yeah.
You have 6 candidates there for 5 seats, so you would have to choose which ones you want there.
So I'd make a motion to accept Christina Willett, Tyler Pelletier, Derek Young, Clifton Seer, and Chris Michaud to the planning board.
I'd second that.
Second that. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Those against, motion carries. Moving on to.
Board of Appeals.
Yeah, consider candidates to be appointed to the town board of appeals.
So as of now, I have only one candidate who's interested, Paul Lavoie, who lives over on Gagnon Road. He's been interested in a little while, and we're gonna continue to look, but we'll still have 2 vacancies on there, and we'll keep up our efforts to try to find some people who might be interested in serving.
Make a motion to appoint Paul Lavoie to the Board of Appeals.
Second that.
Second by Chris. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those against, motion carries. Next, Article 9, is to consider adjustments to the town's planning and land use permit fees. And Gary sent out some requests to other towns.
Yeah, I sent out a request, and some of the stuff was actually on their website, so
Okay.
I went and I found whatever I could, and I asked around. And so, you have a comparison of what fees are. You had a little bit of time to think about it. I think that,
You don't have a comparison of what we have now?
what's that?
What we have now? What's
What we have
current?
now is, you know what, I don't have our schedule of fees here, which is my bad. Let me go pull the building permit for us to make 6 copies.
I was
So what is
surprised,
Oh, sorry.
surprised by Frenchville how low there is.
They've always been at that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. One of the things that we did, just to kind of recap our ordinance changes, we, probably back in 2015, the town had brought in an exemption, $3,000 or less, and you don't need a building permit. And that presented some issues for the CEO and the planning board because, and the assessing department, because the assessor had no way of knowing that there was some assessing work to potentially go look at. It's not to say that if somebody did $15,000 worth of work, like a roof replacement, that it would result in $15,000 of added value, but they still need to go there and check. But if somebody were to put on an addition, that cost $12,000, the assessor wouldn't have any way of knowing that, because it was the permit that is what indicates or triggers the review of the assessment. And the other issue that we had is that sometimes people, when somebody comes in with a building permit application, their CEO is there to help them, guide them through the process for the land use codes to make sure that they're meeting the code, right? And so if people are making improvements to the building, not saying that they're doing anything bad on purpose, I'm saying sometimes they might not be fully aware of the code issues and may construct something that doesn't meet code. And then we find out after the fact, and the CEO would have to go there and say, well, the money that you put on that building, it doesn't meet code. And the person would turn around and say, well, I didn't need the permit. But you still need to meet code. And so had the permit process been in place, I'm not saying we need to collect any fees for that permit, for anything less than 15, but at least if the permitting process would have been in place, the CEO would be there to guide them through the building process to make sure that they stay within the code. So those are basically the issues, and so what we ended up doing is when we went to town meeting, we went through the planning board recommended that we go back to permitting, and they put the $1,000 threshold to trigger a permit. So anything for $1,000 or more triggers a permit application requirement. The planning board was also of the mind that we don't charge, for anything under $15,000 of value. So there should be somewhat of an exemption. I still support that.
Yeah.
But I did say though that I felt that we should at least charge a small fee, because right now this transaction, a permitting transaction, if it's free, doesn't go into our accounting system, right? Every transaction that we cash do through cash receipting has a drop-down menu, and if it's building permits, it's there, and that's a searchable transaction. So if somebody 5 years from now came in and said, building permit, I got a building permit, whatever, we could easily do a search on Trio in our accounting system and find that, and then easily go back and look. So I was basically of the mind that, for anything under, let's say $15,000, that we have a small nominal fee just so we could enter it into our accounting system, so we can track it there, because right now that's not there at all. So as far as fees, I think that our fees have been a little bit out of the norm on expensive projects, and we saw that with the solar project that's going to be built in St. David. When they went before the planning board last year, they gave us a comparison of what fees were, what they've seen, and we were way out of line with our fee schedule. And so it was an issue, and I think that's why we're here. So to discuss that, under our ordinance, you folks are the people who set the fees, right? Threshold for permitting is done through ordinance, but the permitting fees themselves are decided by you as the board. I will also say that the other thing about the no $15,000 thing, no matter what, you need a building or a land use permit in the shoreline. That's the state of Maine rules, and I think it's easy to be confused about that. People would think, well, I don't need a permit for $15,000, so I'm just gonna do something here in the shoreline, and you have to have a permit for that, regardless. So this helps that along. I don't think any work in the shoreline needs a permit. I don't think you can do anything for less than $1,000. So the fact that we have a requirement for any amount of money in the shoreline is almost a moot point, because I think that you can't do anything for $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
So anyway, that being said, I would suggest a small fee for anything up to $15,000. I think,
$15?
What I had proposed, I think I talked to Gary about this, was it wouldn't, right now you're looking at like $10 is what we have for $509.99, and you don't want to jack that up to $15. All we need is some sort of amount attached to that transaction. If we had something along the lines of $2 just as the transaction fee to track it, and then anything over $15,000, then you go up to a more substantial fee. The other thing that concerned me the most was the $10 fee additional for each additional 10,000.
Yes, yeah.
30.
There's no cap on that.
I think those we should just get rid of those and come up with better numbers at the top, because you're looking at $1 million project and you pay $1,200 for a fee. And the last thing we want to do is somebody who wants to spend $1 million in our town, we don't want to turn them away because they have to pay a $1,200 fee. So I think that the language on those two should be removed, and then we just rearrange our fee structure to better fit.
Because I was looking at the other towns, and most of them have a cap.
Yeah.
I think, was it Caribou, $400 maximum?
Yeah, I think it was Caribou.
Can I ask Gary a question?
Yeah.
What a $15,000 project versus a $100,000 project, is there a huge amount of workload difference for the CEO to process those two?
No.
Okay.
But usually there's a site visit.
It depends.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
it depends on the situation. Sometimes they're pretty straightforward, and you just look at the plot plan and you need to verify, but sometimes they're a little bit more complex, and you spend a little bit more time on them, so I'm not sure if the dollar amount correlates to, you know,
Yeah.
more or less of a complex project. If it's, I think that, I don't know, to me, if you had a flat fee,
Well, that's what I'm thinking of, like, is it really necessary to go all the way up to $400, or if we stick it at like a $200 maximum on our price schedule, you know what I mean? I don't wanna undercut what it costs us to do the work, but at the same time, we wanna keep the fees as low as possible to promote people to, you know, spend money in building new things in town.
so if you look at just local communities comparable to our sizes, for
Yeah.
example, right? And they've got a fee of, for $0 to $100,000 of $50.
Yeah.
$101,000 to $300 is $100, and anything above that, 300,000 is $150.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
After the fact, if you didn't, you know, after the fact permit, it's double the permit fee.
Fee.
And what we have, and what's different for us is, we don't have an after the fact permit fee, but we have a fine, right? So, but when you do it with a fine, type of violation, after the fact permit, which would require Board of Appeals variance. Yeah. So I don't know. So I'm not sure if we should get away from the fines, but
That's what I was wondering.
yeah, at this point, I think without further discussion, but, or further study of it. But to me, you know, and I don't think Forkent differentiates between residential and commercial for fees,
I didn't see that.
I didn't see it on theirs. Everybody else seemed to
but
do
some,
that
but
way.
other towns do.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, my thoughts here, Gary, for sure, is that when you put a project from a $0 to $100,000, it makes it so people become honest. You know, because if they come in here, if they're thinking of a project that's 25,000, and they're going to try to claim that it's 15,000 or less, who are we to question that? I like that one-time fee of, and whatever figure it is. Here they're showing us a $50 fee for up to 100,000. That way it makes everybody kind of honest. Okay, my project might be 10, it might be 75. $100,000 project today is, you're going to cover 90% of what's going to get done. I mean, other than that, it becomes a major project. You're really doing a major overhaul. So I like that idea that we would have like a one set fee for a figure all the way up to 100,000. I think that makes a lot of sense.
My concern is that if you're replacing one door, that, you know, why pay $50 to replace one door?
Yeah, no, I definitely think we should have it like a 0 to 15,000 where it's just $2. You know what I mean? Just to cover the fact that you want to track it, and then from 15,000 to 100,000, let's say, then we'll charge.
Yeah.
a fee.
So one break amount between
Correct, the
fig-
zero
what we're
and-
suggesting right
So your
now.
permit fees would, let's say for instance, you were gonna consider a $50 fee for up to 100,000, it would be from $15,001 to 100,000 would be
Right.
$50. And then from 101 to 200 or whatever would be,
I think everybody would be comfortable to be honest, you
Yeah.
know, with a structure like that. You know, we don't have to question that they're saying we're doing a project that's this amount when it really is this amount.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, you've done projects before and you think it's gonna be that, but it ends up costing more.
yeah, yeah.
well that I mean
That's a
that's
phase,
that,
yeah.
exactly that's not the I mean that's the uncontrollable because
Yeah.
you don't sometimes have your set
But-
plans done when you're doing a project like
Right.
that.
I mean, you know, but I'm looking at just the person who replaces a roof or, you know, let's just say for a couple dollars, I'm okay with that, I guess. But there's times where code enforcement are gonna have to verify that it's done.
That's what's going on.
Yeah, and we're paying somebody in the road to just investigate that for $2, you know?
That's a good.
Yeah.
That's a viable point, Richard. That's
You know,
that's,
I've been on
you
the
get-
planning board, and I don't know how many times I had to go to Ridgewood when you were building that before they approved it to walk the land and everything else. You know, I was volunteer, of course, but I know the code enforcement also had to go there and make sure, verify that, you know. what there was reported was correct. You know, at the lake also and every time, and then you get back and you look back and say, oh, there's another thing I should have looked at. You go back up again. You know, I worked on the Rite Aid at that time. I also worked on the VIP and, you know, driveway permits and all that. And there's a lot of work that goes behind it. We don't really think about it, you know.
No.
This is the driveway. I mean, I remember that. The VIP wanted it further up and the state didn't allow it.
About how many building permits do we get a year, roughly?
You have to ask the question.
Less than 15,000.
I'd have to go back and search it to see.
I bet you're not getting many.
I mean, are we
Well, right
looking at
now,
hundreds
right
or
now,
It
thousands?
used to be 200, over 200 a year.
Yeah, and I can tell you right now, if you look in our budget, our year end, and you look at what we budget for permit fees, we've never really adjusted our permit fees from what we budgeted historically, and we're not collecting anywhere near what we budget for because of this exemption. So, a lot less than what it used to be, for sure, yeah.
Used to collect a lot.
So, but I can definitely follow up.
Yeah,
with you on that.
I'm just looking to see, like, with what we're getting now, and if we do set a $2 fee, I'm not thinking we're actually gonna be losing a lot of money. And he's already getting paid from his salary anyway, so it's not like he loses money. And I don't think the town is gonna lose a huge amount of money paying his salary if we only charge $2. Just makes it easier for the homeowner who's, it's $2, I'm gonna go get a permit, that's easy. I'm gonna do it legally, I'm gonna do it right, you know?
That's a good point, though, when somebody says they can get a permit for $2.
Yeah, you know, if it's $50, I'm just replacing my friggin' windows, nobody's gonna notice.
Can't even buy
you
a
know?
bottle of Pepsi for $2.
No.
Who buys a bottle of Pepsi?
Yeah, who buys Pepsi these
Yeah.
days?
So, those fees, are they based off materials or materials and labor on our
That is
end?
them
'Cause it's-
giving us their estimate. So, you know. It could
I
be
notice
that
other
some
places
people-
are specifying
some people-
and-
and, you know, there's an honor system to this. You know, there is a level of trust that we have to place upon the applicants. And I think that sometimes you have the do-it-yourselfers. Well, they're not counting their time, right? They're just counting materials.
Well, that's where I'm at.
But sometimes you're counting, you know, from an assessing standpoint, they don't care about the do-it-yourselfer, right? They care about the value, what's there. So, I don't know how to answer that.
I'm just wondering if somebody comes in with an estimate, you know, I know most estimates come in all in one, it's inclusive estimate, it's gonna give you your labor and everything in one. But if, let's say somebody comes in with a project and their estimate is at $25,000 and 12,000 of that or 13,000 of that is in labor costs, you know, is there a way to make an adjustment for that? Or do we, you know, I'm not one, I don't believe that we should be charging a fee on the labor of having a project done. That's where I stand. I'm fine with the cost of the material and what the end value will be, but to charge a fee based off of labor inside an estimate, I don't know.
I think that, I understand what you're saying, but it becomes an administrative burden
To manage that.
Yeah.
to manage that. You know, like, okay, well, for the CEO to go back and say, well, okay, so how much did you spend on materials and how much did you spend on labor? Some people will hire a carpenter and whatever, they get a quote. That's-
Bring it in, yeah.
That's but you have your do-it-yourselfers, and you know that they're not gonna charge themselves, or they're not gonna charge themselves adding to their permit.
I wouldn't.
Right? And I don't think any of us are interested in that either.
Yeah.
No.
You
So probably not specifying is just the easiest way to do it, and just, if you bring in an estimate, then that's what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. I think going on beyond looking at the violation versus whatever, I think that would require further discussion. But I think it does make sense to do, you know, like Jason said, maybe a couple $1 fee for a permit up to 2,000 or 15,000. And then over that, I don't know what.
Now, would that be
What would make
the same
sense? I mean-
amount for commercial?
I don't know, is there a huge difference in
I wouldn't.
workload? If not, I would say let's keep it just simple, same.
I'm okay with,
I think simple is better.
Simple is better.
yeah.
So the same for commercial as residential.
Okay.
And two, we're really willing to take a a $2 collection for a permit here that's under 15.
Mhm.
Really? Just $2.
Well, you wanna make it
I mean,
five, or-
$10? $2.
A meal is gonna be
You
more
know,
than
who
that.
the hell looks at $2?
Well, that's the whole point. It's
But does anybody consider $10? I guess would that be? I'm just trying to make it like, are these guys kidding? $2? They're gonna make me come in and do a permit for $2? They're gonna look at the dollar amount. You know, $10. Well, all
What
right.
was the fee prior to the exemption? Do you remember? Do we know? It's on here. 0 to 499 was, so
Yeah.
if you were gonna do that project, you'd be,
$1, $5. We had one at $1.
You had
$5.
permits for $1?
For a buck, yep. Up to $500, $4.99. And then it went.
Well,
to
there's been a
$5,
lot of
went to
inflation
10.
since then.
I know, it's
I mean,
been over
it's
30%.
free now up to $500.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
And then it jumps to 10.
$1 permit, we had a lot
to
of.
meet in the middle
those.
at 5.
I would go 5 would be the most that I think I did.
Yeah. I mean, $5 would be a
Yeah,
round
I
figure
think,
enough
yeah.
that
It's
I
a round
can.
figure, a guy could come in, or
Yeah,
girl
$5
could come in and hand a $5 bill.
You can spend
and
more
be
on
done
gas
with
just
it.
to get here.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I like the $5 deal.
And what do you do beyond the 15,000?
Yeah, so then I would jump to 50.
Yeah,
Yeah, 50 makes sense.
15,000 or higher is $50.
Yeah.
And then you want a flat fee at $50. You want to go higher like they do.
Yeah, on a scale.
You know what I mean? From $15,000 to what would be $100.
250?
So 200 at 250,000 and $1, it would be 100.
Would be what?
So do you wanna do a 3-tier schedule or a 2-tier schedule? Fee schedule.
If you were gonna go from 0 to 15,000 at, say, a $5 fee, and you went from 15,001 to 250,000 at a $50 fee, why don't just be on that? You just do a $100 fee and be
Right.
done with it.
So anything $250,000 and is $100.
It's a fair enough fee, and I mean, if you're doing a project that size, honestly, it's minimal added to the cost at that
Yeah.
point. I mean, and then go beyond that, it almost seems like you're gonna nickel dime just to get anywhere. But I mean,
And then remove the additional fee per 10,000.
I
would
don't
put a
see the
cap.
point. No, I would.
Yeah, I'd remove that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're up over the $250,001 and you paid a $100 fee, then that's it. You know.
I mean, these
You know-
people, once you get into these higher price homes, they're gonna be paying taxes there.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Well, that's where
paying
I'm at.
taxes.
So
Yeah. You pay
that's
more
where,
taxes?
you know, you're already getting them. We're getting them pretty good on one end, you know. So
Right. And I don't want to discourage somebody from building a $300,000
Oh.
project or $1 million project just because it's going to cost them $400.
If you're in that range, you don't care about the $100.
Well, the big solar project came
Oh,
to us
yeah.
asking for,
Mm.
you know, so.
Yeah.
Or,
That's why I would
or
like
we
to
could char-
put a
or
cap.
we could charge a really high fee for anything under 100,000 and free up above that.
That works.
reverse psychology.
You'd probably make more money that way.
So we have a proposal.
I'll make a motion that we do a cost structure at 0 to 15,000
Yep,
at $5 fee.
yep,
At 15,001 to 250,000 would be a $50 fee,
yep.
and from 250,000 $1 and above would be a $100 fee.
And that's for
With
both
no
residential,
additional-
commercial.
I think it would cover both.
You want to say
I,
that too.
We can always address it later on.
yeah, with no additional cost beyond that fee.
Yeah, I second that.
Okay. Yeah, we got that? Okay. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on that?
We're on the same.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion carries. Okay.
I think that's a good, good
Well, it's
setup.
fair, and it gives us a way to track it in the system, and if somebody has questions later, we need to go back, it's a way to pull it up. I mean, I know it makes, it's minimal cost.
When was the last time that the town was ever assessed? Properties were assessed?
08?
8,
So is it due?
No, because
No.
we're still certifying our properties at over 100%.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
the state will tell us.
A few more years.
They give you an advance notice.
Yeah, because we're at what, 114?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, we're at 104, but we can certify at 114.
Yeah.
so we're still there.
We're in good shape still.
Okay.
Yep.
Article 10 is to consider an appointment of 2 board of selectmen to a subcommittee to study the needs of the Madawaska Public Library. Any volunteers?
So I'd definitely be interested in that. I think Mino and I both.
Mano and, okay. Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion that
Jason
Jason and
and
Mano
Mano serve on the,
serve on that committee.
to report back to us. Okay, any discussion of that motion? Oh, is there, yeah, okay, is there a second?
Yep.
Okay.
Don't sound too excited, Doug.
You know, this is such a small part of our budget that I have to question why we're having to address so much of our time to this particular budget. I mean, we have budgets out there that are over $1 million, and we only have one representative there, and here we are, we're chasing down the library here at $100,000 in their budget, and we're putting 2 board members on it to see what they're gonna do with it. You know, it's like,
There's a town employee that we have no say over, and a building we don't own, that we have to pay everything.
I don't disagree with the issue. We've always had that issue, I understand, you know, but does it really take 2 board members to make, I mean, you're just gonna evaluate and bring it back to us is what you're doing.
So they're gonna sit down with the library board, and they're gonna talk. They're gonna brainstorm. They're gonna talk about what the concerns are. They're gonna share their concerns with them. They're gonna share their concerns with
I
them.
think you need to review
They
the
need to look at the bylaws.
and
Yeah.
whatever's in there, and
and
let's see where
funding-
we're at.
Funding methods and
And it goes beyond budget, it goes the whole
expectations,
bubble.
all kinds of things. And it's early and it's great that we're starting on
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah.
And they're gonna come back with some kind of report, some recommendations.
No,
I actually
I'm
think
in
the
favor.
library has an ability to provide more within the same budget, and I think it's worthy to look at those things and see.
We
Yeah.
don't, who knows? I mean, I know might come back and want to double their budget.
Oh,
It's
that's
pretty,
not happening.
it's pretty,
No, that's not happening. I love books, but no.
it seems to be run very laxed anyway. It doesn't seem like the board meets very often,
No,
it
I
doesn't
haven't
sound.
met
Yeah.
at all,
Yeah.
once.
So,
well,
and I
maybe
think
with
that's
2
a
board
concern.
members shows that we're serious here about getting information and improving the services and,
Yeah, like I said, it's not about the budget, it's about the whole thing, the whole picture, like, you know.
Going in open-minded and see
Yeah.
what's there, what we can do, get it better,
right.
Okay.
make that a
Okay.
value added.
We have a motion, a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion? Those against? Motion carries. Article 11 is to consider the appointment of 2 board members to the Personnel Policy Review Committee.
Nominate Chris Brady.
I don't mind sitting on that, whatever.
Okay,
I'm fine
Chris
with
and
that.
Mano? Chris and Mano?
Yeah.
Is that a motion?
Make a motion.
Make a motion for Chris and Mano to serve on this
Okay.
Personnel
Before-
Policy
before
Review
you're-
Committee.
You're fully done, if I may. I think that on this one, you know, you obviously want to have the HR director and myself, and probably a couple of department heads for some feedback. And so, is your motion going to cover that, to say that, or is it just assumed that the HR director and myself and maybe a couple of department heads would be involved in that?
My thought is 2 board members could sit down and decide what they want to do and how they want to review this and set up the team they need.
Yeah.
Is that,
I think we can leave it up to those members to
Yes.
come up with a team.
Okay.
yeah. And then report back to us, you know, a progress report on a timely basis, you know, whatever time you met and what's going on and.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
I think that works.
perfect. Okay, we have a motion, second. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those against? Motion carries. Article 12, to consider a training session for the Board of Appeals. Board of Appeals hasn't had training in quite a while.
The Board of Appeals hasn't had training in quite a while, and they've become very active lately with some of the matters that we had before them, and they're gonna continue to be very active lately with some of the matters that are before them. And so, I had a, conversation with Richard with my concern, that, I don't mind helping out and providing information to the Board of Appeals or to the Planning Board, part of my job. But, when it comes to the roles and responsibilities and training, I don't think should be coming from me. I think it needs to come from, maybe a credible source or somebody that might think that.
Gary and I talked, and we think the Board of Appeals is more urgent. And after that, it's gonna be the planning board to put on the agenda to get more training up for them also. We got new board members and everything. Once you know your roles and responsibilities, what you can and can't do, and what you should do and shouldn't do, I think it's gonna provide a base for them to know what to do, and their meetings are gonna go smooth, and they'll know what to do.
Does anybody know when the last training like that was given, by any chance?
No.
If ever?
So, I will say that the Board of Appeals has been very inactive since before I got here. And I think part of that is because we weren't issuing permits anymore.
Correct.
There was a lot of work being done that wasn't being permitted that might require variances. I can only assume that that's why, if you go back and look at the binders for Board of Appeals, there's binders and minutes. And they hardly meet anymore. They're meeting now though, because we had some issues, but I think we're gonna start to see more activity again in the Board of Appeals and the Planning Board, even more than we have been, just because we're gonna have more permitting activity now. So, as far as trainings go, I don't know, I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
Definitely.
We have a question from the audience where we allow it?
I'm fine with that.
They're
I
fine?
just have a quick question.
Okay,
If anybody was willing to take this course, Board of Appeals, would they be able to if they're not on the Board of Appeals, in case they wanted to run for the Board of Appeals for further down the road? Because if nobody knows what it means or what it's entailed.
right.
That's a good point.
It's kind of hard to train somebody.
We typically have to pay a small fee.
Is it a per head?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, would be like a night course at the high school or something.
Well, no, it's not like that. Actually, it's either, they do offer more online now, but sometimes, like Northern Maine Development Commission will facilitate a regional training, and somebody will come up from like maybe MMA or whatever, and they'll put on a training for planning boards or Board of Appeals or code enforcement officers and things like that. So.
But I'm quite sure if somebody said, hey, I'd be interested in that, you contact Gary, and Gary said, maybe, yeah, we could.
Yep,
You know.
absolutely.
Yeah, if they're willing to pay their way, I don't see why not.
Is that why you're bringing, is that why this is on the agenda here? Must be a price tag to this?
No,
There
no,
isn't?
I think that, it would be important for the Board of Appeals to be trained.
Yeah.
And,
It's one of my campaign promises, that training.
No, and that's fine. I'm just wondering, I mean, what action do we need here than to just say, yeah, we all agree. There's no money tied to this. There's nothing,
Well, there could be.
it could be.
Just a fee for the outside.
Yeah,
What
it
do
could
you-
be for,
What do you think the most would be, so we could put that in our motion, not to exceed what?
Oh, I don't know, I think that it would,
It's a Zoom meeting, probably.
I don't know.
I think it's gonna be,
I don't think it's been that expensive.
yeah.
Right.
So, let's say it's $400, and all of a sudden, Gary said, I need $20. I mean, he's gonna stop the
We
training for
have
20.
budget for training, so.
No, then I'll make a motion to go ahead and give the training to the Board of Appeals.
Okay.
whatever the cost.
Second.
Any more discussion?
Can we add in there to provide that to the planning board behind it?
I
Or
was
do
gonna
we
put
have to
that
put that
on-
on a different,
I was gonna put it on a different,
Okay. Okay.
Makes sense.
we'll do this one first, and then, okay.
Okay.
So we have a motion, we have a second, any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those against? Motion carries. Article 13 is brought in by me, to consider board discussion regarding the Board of Selectmen meeting procedures and policy. If you look at the Board of, the policy we have and bylaws, we're not following the order of business, public hearings, call to meeting, articles taken out of order, items to be signed. I think item 6 is public participation, we have that first. So I wanted permission to provide an updated review of this to reflect what we're actually doing versus what the prior board had mentioned should be done as a guidance for bylaws. So is everybody you know.
I think we should, I've been a big advocate of sticking to what's on paper.
Yeah.
So I think that if it's on paper, let's do it.
Okay, so I would like to review it and provide suggestions at maybe a future meeting. I don't know if it's been the next meeting or the meeting after that, but by the fall, we have a new revised bylaws.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. You're gonna take the time to look at that?
Yes.
I'm fine with that. Of
course.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything
Okay.
you're gonna do for work, I'm good with.
Okay. Yeah, especially these wages. Okay, so can we have a motion on Article 13? To review the bylaws and of the Board of Selectmen?
You did?
I just made the motion.
I'll second.
Second.
Yep.
Any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Those against? Motion carries.
Before you guys go to adjourn, we need to decide other meeting dates. But I do want to update you on having a board meeting specific for specific purpose, with no other business. So there is a solar developer who is kicking tires on putting a solar project in St. David, a company called NG. And I've met with them a couple times. Last year, they got a building permit, somewhat of an extended building permit, for a property over by O'Massey's on the flats on the riverside of the road there. Next to, was the Bollier property there, next to,
O'Massey's Farm?
yeah, it's just past
Servitor
O'Massey's
Corporation?
It's not O'Massey's old farmland, but it's property of what was the Bolliers before. So anyway,
Okay.
the board, the planning board and the CEO had approved the permit back then. They weren't sure if they were gonna move forward with the project based on legislation in Augusta that would need to happen the right way for them to be able to do it. And that did happen the right way. So under, there's been a rash of solar development in Maine. It's sort of like a gold rush, if you will. And it's created some issues that Maine has kind of clamped down on solar development a little bit and how it's governed. And I don't know all the details. I just know that it made solar development potentially not as viable. And this company, NG, and other solar companies interested in Aroostook County advocated at the legislature to put an exemption in, or a bill in that would isolate the county from that. And so, and I'm saying it that way, I don't know the text of the bill, but whatever it was, it passed, and our solar developer is going to build a solar project in St. David next year. Next year. They're gonna do the road this year and the entrance from the main road. But next year they're gonna put in a solar installation. While this is going on, and this has been going on for a year, there's a project that's being developed in Frenchville near Queens Village, on the Fongemy Flat there, on the hillside of the road, if you will, or on the left if you're going towards Fort Kent. Company over there is called Novel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're courting towns right now to buy their energy, and their offer is like 10% savings. So whatever the rate is established by the PUC, whatever utility, or there's a 10% savings off of that, and you can lock into a 20-year agreement, if you will. I'm not sure exactly what their agreements look like. I haven't really looked at it yet. And they've been talking to me for a while, wanting to get before this board, and I said, I want to get you before the board when the board's going to be ready for a good conversation with more than one proposal, because I knew that we were potentially going to have a solar project in Madawaska, and that we typically like to favor our taxpayers first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, knowing that the St. David project is moving forward, they were just here today. They visited with me and Senator Jackson because he helped out to pass that legislation for them. So we're looking at having a meeting for just solar proposals from Noble and NG. I don't know if Noble would be here or if they would Zoom in, but NG will be back up here for that meeting, and we're thinking about second or third week of August. And then we would reach out to the other guys and line them up as well. So I'd like to see if we can have a meeting without town business, so you guys can just
Focus
listen to
on
them.
Be a special
It would be
board
like a
me-
special board meeting, yeah.
Okay.
I am going to be, as far as regular board meetings goes, I'm going to be on vacation from, let me get, August 4 to August 10, and August 11 through 12 is the NTCMA Town Manager Institute in Southern Maine. So the first 2 weeks of August, I'm not available for meetings.
I'm on vacation too.
Third
And
week is the Acadian Festival, isn't it?
That's 13, 14,
Yeah.
15.
13, 14, 15 is the Acadian Festival. So the weeks after would be the ones that we have our next regular board meeting. Yeah, and then also a meeting with the solar developers to hear what they have to offer.
Can we move it to a Wednesday night?
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that.
Wednesday, the 18th?
18th?
I'm good.
And is that
Or-
pending if the solar developers can speak with us, or are we
No,
talking
that's a
our
regular
board
board
meeting?
That's a regular board meeting.
Regular board meeting on the 18th
Of August.
Okay, I'm
of
good with
August,
that.
yeah.
Well, could we not get the two solar companies here and we could do them prior to our meeting?
No, we want to do it separate.
I would want to do it
Yeah.
separate, because we're probably gonna have 2 hours worth of business potentially, and then 2 hours worth of proposals to go over with them, and there'll be some Q&A.
Okay.
It's kind of complicated, their project, how these things are structured, and energy credits and all that kind of stuff, and I would like to have you guys have an opportunity to not feel like the meeting's going on forever, and have plenty of time to talk with them.
Can we get a copy of that bill that was passed
Yes,
from Troy? Is that,
Yeah.
Troy was a sponsor?
yes,
I'd like to know what it says in there.
yeah.
So will we do the next week for the solar thing, maybe the 24th or the 25th on Wednesday, either one?
That's what I was thinking, the 24th.
Are we good on the 18th though, at
So
5:30?
far, I'm all set with the 18th.
For a regular board meeting?
Right,
Yep.
let's tackle that one down.
Mhm.
Are you guys good for the 18th?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think we already
Yep.
said, yeah.
I know you're all
Yeah,
set.
I'm all set.
Yep.
Okay.
And you wanna do the following week for,
Yeah, with the 24th.
That would make sense,
the
20,
25th?
24th, 25th.
Well, 23 or 24 for me,
Yeah, 24
Let's do the
work.
24th, would work better for
Tuesday?
me, yeah.
Tuesday. Well, contact them to see when it would be better for them.
I think they're pretty much wide open. Well, I can't speak for NG, but for Novo, but every time they talk to me, they're available pretty much any time, and I think they could potentially Zoom in too and do their presentation that way.
Okay,
So if they're not here,
so it's
not gonna be hard for them to connect up.
let's target the 24th as a special.
Are we doing that at 5, 5:30?
I'll leave it open.
If
Until
we
we
start
know.
at 5:30, we're gonna go 7:30, almost 8 by the time we get out of there,
For the special?
Yeah.
I think,
No?
I think if an hour with each one, we could
Okay.
cover it.
huh? 5:30 works.
5:30 works then. I mean, this is tentative, it could change here, but.
Right.
Do you want to have another one in July?
I think we're gonna be good. I don't have anything that needs, it needs your action. Obviously, we've done some tonight. I think we're all set. I think I'd be all set.
Okay, we can always.
If something
short
comes
notice.
up, we can short notice it, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Or we could schedule
so
it
you're
and then
looking at
cancel
just
if we
at
don't
the
need it.
18th?
Yep.
Okay, I'm okay with that too.
Yep.
That gives us 4 weeks.
That gives us a month.
See, but the bylaw says we do 2 meetings a month.
Yeah, we've not done that.
I know, that's why I said I want to review that, so.
Yeah, I mean, we,
Kind of do them as needed, I
Yeah.
guess.
Did
for
it
a
say
while,
up to 2 meetings, or did it say 2 meetings?
It says
minimum?
2,
2 minimum.
yeah. At
read
least 2,
that.
it
We
says.
can have another one.
Yeah, yeah, we can do it tomorrow if you want. I mean,
What do you off
You know.
tomorrow?
I mean, when things are, pretty straightforward town business, there's no anomalies or whatever. It's one meeting a month. It's been the norm since I've been here.
I remember when I previously served, that we would try to not do anything in July and August, or like a break for
Really?
the holidays, or the summer's so short here, so let's enjoy it, but we do like maybe 3 in June, right after the town meeting there, and before the town meeting, and then in September, like 3 also, and then cool off a bit. That's how it used to be.
I think, there's policy in place, but I think most of the time, the boards hash out how it works best for themselves, and yeah, you do wanna provide some constant, like routine for the people, for the public.
Mm.
They meet once a month, they meet twice a month, is it the
Yeah.
second Tuesday, is it the second Wednesday? So, providing that.
So the public knows every 2 weeks we usually have a meeting, so
Yeah.
they know, they can attend and bring their comments or concerns or.
But in the past, since I've been here, the boards have opted to be a little bit more fluid and flexible and not really adhere to the policy and tailor the meeting dates and times around what works best for them.
Well,
their
otherwise it's not
schedules.
functioning either way, so I mean, you kind of have to work with the board that's present, I guess.
And maybe that's something we put in our review,
A little more
instead of just saying we
flexibility.
don't follow them, let's adjust that to
Yes.
match what we do now.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do.
I think that maybe in the future, knowing that you try to accommodate your town officials who have to, take their own time and their schedules and shift them around and whatnot, I think that maybe the policy in respect to how often you meet should say every year, after the new board is elected, we will determine how often we meet.
Right.
And from there, you tailor it.
It gives you the
try to set it
flexibility.
out there for the year. So that way you're trying to accommodate the board as much as you can, and you just put it out there, okay, so we're gonna meet monthly, or at a minimum,
Right, I think that should be in there.
yeah,
At a minimum, you have one meeting, but
yeah.
I'll get back to you on that.
Well, you don't have to have an actual structure there as far
No,
as
no.
the second meeting.
I wouldn't think.
Then it's just an as need.
You'll have what is in front of you, some very old policies,
Oh, yeah,
I know.
that's,
yeah,
I looked,
yeah.
yeah, it's old, very.
And those are just policies set by boards, there's nothing in there that's charter, the town doesn't have charter.
All right.
If we had a charter that specified the board shall
It'd be
meet
a lot different.
every second Tuesday of the month, then you shall meet every second Tuesday of the month.
Right,
But we don't have that.
We don't have that.
So policies can be amended.
but we should do that more frequently, I guess.
Yep. Okay, next,
else?
anything
Motion
else,
to
Gary?
That's it.
That's it, motion to adjourn, seconded by
Yeah.
Doug?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you.
Very good.
Are you available last week?
Very good, very good.
Yeah? If you wanna take the liberty of setting up a meeting with
Meet.
Gary and maybe